Chip Leer. Wildside.
Welcome to Chip Leer's Wildside podcast. When I started first thinking about having a podcast and the potential guests that I could have, this gentleman that we have on today is one of those desired guests because he's one of the foremost communicators in the world of sport fishing education. He finds himself leading the trends along the way and helping share those with so many different people, whether it's online or through television. And of course, I'm talking about James Lindner from Lindner Media Productions. His family has really set the tone in outdoor communications and in fishing education. And he's going to share with us what it's like to grow up Linder, what it's like to be inside that epicenter of fishing knowledge, and where we think the trends are going in terms of technology and youth fishing. So there's a lot on the table for James to talk about today. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure you're going to find it insightful. Well, James Lindner, welcome to our podcast. We're glad to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's actually the time of the year, a good time to do podcasts since it's 17 below this morning. I'm not ice fishing, but I am prepping for a seminar this weekend in Wausau.
Yeah, so you've got that to get back to here later today. But most importantly, I mean, I'm excited to have you here because when this whole concept really came together, when I just started thinking about it, I stopped by your office. You were there, Al was there, Nick, Jeremy, got some guys together and just talked about where communications is going in terms of digital media and all of which you shared the story just here recently about how much that has changed on a fishing trip to Milwaukee Harbor.
Oh, yeah. No, it's absolutely amazing. Today's day and age, actually, the transfer of information, the biggest thing is the speed of it. And it's just fascinating to me. Actually, I was out on Milwaukee Harbor. We're fishing for brown trout, and my buddy's shooting still photography, and Eric Hottie comes rolling up, and he decides he's going to land this big brown trout. Well, Jason shooting pictures. And I said, that's cool. To make a long story short, Eric does these Facebook Live little pieces, and he does a little Facebook Live. And by the time this thing is over, it took me about 20 minutes to land this brown trout. There's actually over 1,000 people watching and commenting on all different aspects of it. And he's, conferring back and forth with the different people who are on the Facebook Live. But to make a long story short, by the end of the day, I couldn't even believe it. I actually showed it to Al that 100,000 people viewed that in a 24-hour period with a cell phone. Can you imagine what the influence and how that can impact, even bringing people to a fishery? I mean, that fast. Techniques, lures, individual bait presentations. Today's day and age, where it used to be with linear television, because it's usually shot in advance and then aired later, you do not have that, the speed of and how that can influence things. It's absolutely stunning to me.
And it's coming relatively overnight. I know you grew up in one of the most iconic families in outdoor television and fishing television. You've got a long distinguished career, National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, Minnesota's Fishing Hall of Fame. But in production-wise, you've been doing this since, when did you start in media production?
A long time ago.
Yeah. It was like the 80s, right?
Oh, yeah, well, even before that, actually, we started initially doing our first television shows with Lindy Tackle Manufacturing was the first television shows we had done. Actually, I was on the first show with Al Lindner, and we actually shot it on Sand Lake in the Park Rapids area, and we've been on television ever since. So we've actually been probably, as far as broadcast television fishing shows, been one of probably the longest shows on the air today.
So, and where I'm going with that is that we watch the mediums evolve and change from big long productions for television, and then you release them in the spring and all airs in the first quarter. We've got magazines and media and still photos and all the production that goes along with that to a cell phone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
crazy.
Yes, it is. But the thing is, you see, one of the coolest things is, to me, in more recent years, is the whole YouTube generations in the speed, in this really quick turnaround time, a lot of viral editorial content, following people around where they sort of, you befriend these people and you become part of watching them. It's almost like watching not a sitcom, but a situation. It is, to a degree, is you sort of befriend and you sort of watch what they're doing. You're interested in what they air, and there's watching all these kids, and it's interesting to me on how much money these kids have made. They really have done, with YouTube delivery. YouTube is a big delivery system of more or less television to a degree right now.
So is that a reflection of our hunger for realism? I mean, I think back in the early days of TV, everything was such a production. It was multiple days to put together one little segment and whatever that was. But now it's like everybody just wants the real thing. So they want live Facebook, and they're going to show up the next day.
Yeah, and you know what people really like is they like the successes, but they also like the failures, the problems, the other things that people can relate to when they go out into the field, when they have these technical issues and all these different things. They actually it becomes real, which is, sort of interesting.
Well, it is what fishing is. It isn't perfect. It does take a while to put a bite together, right? I mean, you just don't get out and catch fish right away.
No,
it's a process.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That being said, even talking about technology, how does that actually go into angling, and how has it affected angling? To me, it's really interesting. Just the tools that we have to go, the fish finding process, to speed fish finding. Today's day and age, because you hear all this hype about panoptics, side imagery, down imaging, all these electronics technologies. To tell you the truth, one of the tools that's never has really garnered, I guess, its importance in angling is interesting. And to me, it's mapping. It's actually high-end mapping, like these Lake Master mapping that is really unbelievably how it has changed the speed of processing to find fish. Years ago, we used to use 2D sonar and drive around an underwater structure. You'd have to be able to identify where we're at. You're lining up a birdhouse and a tip of a dock, or trying to figure out where you're at. Once you found fish, they even come back to that same spot. Today's day and age, with these high-end mapping, I'm out in midsummer, I'm fishing for walleyes on 22-foot hard bottom points that dump off into deep water. Well, I look on the map and I can see 4 more, and I drive directly to that exact duplicate of that spot. I'm fishing weed lines. I'm fishing whatever that the tops of humps for muskies, in midsummer, and you don't waste time. What I mean? It just speeds that fish finding process so immensely. It is. People are fishing fish a lot more. They're spending more time where the fish are versus trying to find the fish. You know what I mean?
So subsequently, it's made it a lot easier. I love the fact that we can punch into our electronics exactly what we're looking for. If we're looking for a break that goes from, a 3-foot depth range on weeds on this kind of pitch, and have that map light up and tell me where else on that body of water I can find that same similar type of structure.
Absolutely. We use that. I use that all the time, but we have this depth highlight feature where I can actually change it. And I change it all the time based on the fish I'm fishing for. You know what I mean? Whether I'm fishing for bass or walleyes or muskies, you get out, you identify a specific pattern where the fish are at, find a couple of spots, and then you really light that up, and then it's so much faster that I use it all the time. I'm actually fishing these MLF Champions Tour events with Scott Bonham, runs them, classic bass, and our whole goal is to catch as many fish as we can catch, a bass, within an 8-hour period. We're blessed in Minnesota. We actually have fabulous bass fisheries. Most of these events, it'll take between 80 and 130 pounds to win these events. So it's a lot of finesse fishing. It's a lot of trying to, you have to be catching fish all the time. If you're not catching fish, you're going down really quickly. You make a tactical error. I'm going to run over to a lake where I found a bunch of fish, and I drive over that 15 minutes over there, and I try to figure out the fish aren't on. Boy, that was a tactical error, because now I'm all of a sudden I went from 3rd place to 8th place, and you see it live, real time. I have some marshals in the boat that are telling me what status I'm at this point in time. You see what I mean? Everything is real time. You know what I mean?
Well, that's where we are today. Everything is real. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's faster to find fish. It's faster. I mean, technology can work to your advantage. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But so how much is and I love the technology like what Bonham was doing with classic bass and the MLF format where you're catching fish live, it gets recorded, it gets released right back into the water. There's a marshal in the boat
Yeah.
that's monitoring that whole system. I love it and I hate it. And I'm telling you, I'm going to say I love it because I like the immediacy. I love, especially from a conservation standpoint, what it does for fish. But it's so much different than 5 biggest fish of the day or whatever number of biggest fish of the day.
It's taken me a while. I've actually fished the last 2 years of fished all of their events, and it's taken me a while just because of naturally the way I fish. Because actually, I've fished some of my. I was up on Lake Vermilion, and I ended up taking I don't know whatever I took. I made the cashed a check, but my son looked at me and said, "You're fishing for the wrong fish. You had a 3.5 pound average." And he goes, "No, you were fishing for the wrong fish. Dad, you got to be catching more smaller ones." And I said, "Well, okay. How do I figure and target more small ones?" But that's the name of the game. Name of the game. That's what it is.
So is there room for both? I mean, in our sport, I mean, we still Bassmaster, the biggest stage of bass fishing is still 5, the biggest, right?
Yeah.
Our Walleye World National Walleye Tour is still doing 5. We bring them to the stage, we weigh them. It's old school tournament fishing. But now we've seen this new. It's definitely a new approach. Why couldn't we adjust that to just taking the fish all day, but you're going to weigh 5?
I sort of like that idea. I think it's going to. I think MLF is doing that right now, where they're actually
going to adjust it. Yeah,
they're going to adjust it, and they're going to actually put a minimal size limit in those where they can actually target bigger fish. I know
didn't they up it to? Did they up the length or the weight?
But they could. I'm not sure which one of the two.
Right.
But they could actually adjust it accordingly, whatever they wanted to. If they wanted to, realistically, they could say it's a 5 pound minimal limit. So it's all of a sudden a horse hunting tournament. You go to the right fishery, it'd be really intriguing. So are they going to change? Unquestionably, and I think they're going to keep on changing. The small fish technology is at least cumulative weight for just the numbers of fish. I don't like that as much, and the reason why I say that because it really focuses on really finesse techniques, net rigs, drop shotting, Senkoing, that type of fishing, because we actually have fished like 10 of these events, and how many of those events that we've fished in the Champions Tour events, the thing is almost all of those events are won that same way, like Senko fishing, drop shotting. It's really super finesse fishing, where they've taken a lot of the tackle boxes and the equipment we have. We're not utilizing those, the power fishing techniques, the big spinner baits, crankbaits, jerkbaits, swim baits, you know what I mean? That part of the puzzle where you go target those big fish. I may have found them drop shotting where I found these fish, but you're not utilizing a large arsenal of different knowledge base that you have on the water. The one thing I do like about it is that live interaction where you're at. It is intense in the fact that you know exactly where you're at in the lineup or your current position within the tournament. That's absolutely fascinating, and it put tremendous amount of pressure on you because you hear, and I've been through these roller coaster rides with these different guys competing against them. The interesting thing, I was at the championship. I was on Lake Minnetonka about 2 years ago, and I'm just trying to make the cut for it was the last event of the year, trying to make the championship. And Corey Brandt is fishing right out from me, and we're catching fish side by side, watching him catch them. I'm catching one, he catches one, he catches, and then he ends up catching a 3.5 pounder right at the end and boxed me out. But it was sort of interesting. Yeah.
So how does that play? Does the marshal, are they required to update you?
Yes.
In the boat. So I mean, whether you want to know, because I mean, there's a time and place you want to put blinders on, do my own thing. I just need to think, right?
Yes.
And then there's a time.
Are they mandatory? I think they actually said they're constantly monitoring you and giving an update of where you're at. And I think the marshals are actually told that they're supposed
James,
to do
you're
that.
losing.
Yes, you're slipping or you're going up, which just makes it a really good when you're going up, but when you're going down, it gets to be an aggravation. I don't even want to hear about it anymore. No, I don't want to know that. Yeah, but then again, within those events, I think it's good in the fact that you got to move. You have to do something different because you are slipping.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Somewhere I grew up guiding, and there was, you have to have that mentality in your head that somewhere on this body of water, there's fish biting somewhere, and I just have to keep making adjustments until I figure out some fish. The people I got to make happy. You can't just settle into they're not biting today or the wind's wrong. Especially with an app like that, you know that it's happening somewhere.
Yeah.
And you got to make it happen.
Oh, no question about it. Al has said it for years. The fish are always biting. You got to figure out what they're willing to bite on. And well, all of the anglers and viewing audience here have seen it a little bit tougher days than when I would personally say, well, they're not biting, to tell you the truth. But realistically, I think in tournaments fishing, that's where you really see it. And I come in and I've got 5 peanuts in my bag, and then I look next and the guy lifts up his bag and he's got 20 pounds or 25 pounds. You see that as a general rule, the fish are always biting. The guy who adjusts to the situation, even during horrible cold fronts, you'll see this. And it's always intriguing to me when that happens during those tournaments. The majority of the field will not do very well, but a select number of individuals who figured out what happened, those fish, all of a sudden, you get a big cold front come through, we're fishing for walleyes, we're fishing for bass, whatever species of tournament fishing situation you saw, somebody will put it together. They figured out where the fish collected in some deep weed patch. They figured out the technique on how to catch those fish, and they ultimately come in with a really big bag of fish. Figured it out because all the fish, a lot of times when those cold front, what happens is a lot of those fish will collect together into a really small area. And then they fine tune it, and they get them. They get them in a big way, And these guys, today's day and age, the quality of our anglers, they're really good. I mean, most of the guys you're competing against in so many of these different, today's day and age, anglers have more information. They're astute anglers. Are very, very familiar with techniques, and it's just fascinating to me. I actually had a good fortune. I was out last year. I was over at Kevin Van Dam's brother. He has a big in-store promotion, Randy, and I was over there speaking, and I got a chance to sit down with Kevin and Randy. And Kevin, shared, how he was doing with the MLF tournaments and, who he's competing with these days. And he says, it wasn't that long ago that power fishing, and you'd go to a certain venue, and if it was a flip and bite, it was Biffle or Brower, or if it was a crankbait bite that Paul Elias or Fritzy or these guys were going to be in the program. Today's day and age, he says, no, it's a completely different story. All those kids he's fishing with, the Zeldanes and the Jacob Wheelers and these younger guys, he says they're not great at anything, but I can tell you one thing, they're very, very good at everything. They got 25 rods on the deck. They're not afraid to use that rod for whatever situation to ultimately find and catch the fish right at this point in time. You know what I mean? And they're, that old adage of, versatility is really key. It's become even more important right now. It is to be at least successful in the tournament fishing world. That's only but a small part of, it's what's really promoted and popularized because it's, seen broadcast so much in various venues and delivery systems. Everything revolves around tournament fishing. The fact of the matter is 75 or whatever, 65, 75%, it doesn't have anything to do with tournament fishing. I mean, it's all these anglers that go out and just enjoy fishing and like to go out on the water.
I love tournament fishing because somebody always does figure it out. No matter where you go, what it is, or what species it is, on any given day, somebody will find a key that helps us all become better fishermen of what they figured out on that particular day. And that's what I love about it. I also know from talking to some manufacturers, like this new format is not being embraced open. I mean, with big open arms. They're seeing that consumers somebody wins a Bassmaster, somebody wins a large walleye tournament, they see a general uptick in tackle sales on whatever they won the tournament in.
Yes.
They're not seeing that as much on this digital format, which I'll call the MLF format. And I don't know if that's because we're not embracing it, or is it the size of the fish that is it the race for smaller fish that changes people's attitude? Or is this, in all fairness, we've only really been doing this a couple of years now. It takes a while.
Oh, no question about it.
We just got to give it time because things change.
Yeah, it's a different audience too. When you look at it, all of a sudden MLF started their programming, and it is, BASS and even FLW to a degree, they have a monstrous following of people. It's been developed for how many years now? I mean, BASS over 50 years,
right.
You know what I mean? ML or even FLW has been, a functioning unit for a pretty long period of time. They built a very big grassroots following of people, where MLF is starting at ground zero. And even though a lot of the high-end BAS players moved to that league, all those grassroots people did not leave with them, and they have to establish their own and build their own following of people, and that is going to take some time. That is not going to happen overnight. There's no question about that.
I think there's a core of people that thought it was going to happen overnight, that was going to be really easy just to start anew, and then everybody was going to jump.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
there was a lot of hope there.
I would imagine so too.
But it makes perfect sense to me, because I'm also coming back to where we're at digitally. You talk about the younger anglers coming in and Kevin Van Dam's take on everybody being good at a lot of things. The amount of digital information that's out there, like we started talking about, and the pre-fish time takes place long before you get to a tournament. So if you're going somewhere, what are you doing to prepare yourself for any one of these events? In old school days, you'd have to get there 10 days, 2 weeks ahead of time, pick apart every single weed to put together a bite. With all the information that's available online now, do you need to be there that far in advance?
No, not really. Actually, I think you're better off. It's odd that you say that, actually, because the best events that I've been most successful with are bodies of water I've never been there before. No preconceived idea, no knowledge of that lake. I go there and you cut it apart and you're fishing by the moment. And for those type of fishing situations, it's not the top 5 fish. It's just numerous fish you're going to fish. I think it's probably beneficial for you. That's one thing that's so nice with mapping programming today, where I can go, sit in the parking lot or do it online in the computer, study the maps, figure out what the game plan is for this time frame of the year. If I'm fishing spring, I'm fishing the big shallow flats. If I'm fishing midsummer, I may be out in the big main lake points and figuring out where there's more docks. And I can go online and Google Maps and go figure out where the biggest strips of docks are, in all different aspects, from weed composition. A lot of people don't even realize that. A lot of these guys, it's amazing on the different things you can do, even with water levels. If you go into a reservoir, I fished some opens and BASS opens and FLW opens in years past, and you could go on Google Maps and actually go back in time during the low water period, go see isolated boulder piles, strips of rocks on these reservoirs, and go to a lake I've never been to, Douglas Lake. I'd never been to the lake. I get there with my kid and I pull up and I said, "Yeah, there's a bunch of big boulder strip out in here." My kid looks at me and says, "How do you know that?" Because I went online, isolated, transposed those coordinates into my depth finder from Google Earth. So you can just gather unbelievable information. Even for, what's really interesting is even weed composition. Weed composition, to see the depth and thickness of different weeds from aerial views. You can go backward in time on Google Earth and go look at the depth of weeds that you can apply to your fishing.
So what's really interesting the way you say that is because in my opinion, the hottest anglers on the walleye tour, which I'm close, obviously the closest with, but I'm seeing and hearing the same thing on a lot of the bass tours, is it's go into a body of water and just react to what is. Don't worry about don't go in with any waypoints. Go in with some
clean slate.
And I'm talking about like fish waypoints, right? Structure, types of bottoms, weeds. That's a different animal, right? Just having a lay of the land.
Right.
A lot of that is on your graph anyway. But so the intricate details of the spot are nice to have, but mostly it's reacting to the moment.
I think that's really true. That's one thing that, when people, every time you put your boat in the water, Chip, it's, as well as I know, every time you put in the boat in the water, you have to realize you're following fish that are moving seasonally. There's this big swing, even in a relatively small body of water. These fish, and we filmed on these small bass lakes from year to year to year. You go back there one time, in July. Then I go back to the same spot in July. The first time I went there, I caught them, and all the bass were really lined up on the deep rock ledges. The next year, I go back the exact same period of time. I could go back there in a week from now. All of a sudden, those deep rock fish are all evacuated, and all the fish are up in shallow weed beds, or the majority of the fish that I can catch at this point in time are shallow. So what it tells you is, the fish are shifting back and forth on a wide variety of different reasons. It could be forage. There are different food opportunities. You have perch, crayfish, panfish, shad, all these different food. And these fish are sort of moving around, grazing on whatever type of food opportunities that exist in this different lake. Smallmouth bass, all of a sudden you get a big, Mille Lacs Lake, all of a sudden you get a big mayfly hatch. All of a sudden these fish, there's giant shifts going on, and you have to be able to move with the fish, you know what I mean? And that's what's going. To be really successful, you have to adjust accordingly, and it's not. A lot of times people want it like a magic bullet, the new magic lures. And I do these seminars every year, a variety. Just be careful.
They're paid to sell lures.
Yeah, no. I think it is important. That is true. But the thing is one of the biggest things that people don't realize is the fish finding process is still really important. I mean, really important part of the puzzle, and your willingness to move based on weather conditions, environmental conditions. You know what I mean? That's one thing that's really cool, that to finding fish, that even like the side imagery and down imaging that I use a lot. And, say I'm out on the tip of a point in Ice Lake, there's a bunch of smallmouth bass on this rock ledge. And I drive over that thing with side imagery, and I'm looking, 75 feet in both directions. The interesting thing is I'm going to come back and I'm going to fish a tournament here 2 days from now. With the side imagery, it's giving me a far better picture of what this habitat's laid out. So what I ultimately do, I drive over a structure, and anything that looks good, there could be a ledge drop out in here where there's a bunch of boulders in deeper water. I put a coordinate there. I did not catch any fish there, but I'm going to put a coordinate there. The reason being, my thinking is I'm going to come back. Those fish are going to move. They're going to move somewhere else. If all of a sudden you have a cold front, those fish are going to slip out to that ledge drop. If it's a denser weed cover to my right, you see what I mean? But I've caught them on this spot here. But what I'm doing is trying to figure out where the fish are going to. And that's one thing that side imagery has given anglers a far better perspective of how the fish are going to move around, because you have to see a bigger portion of the bottom composition that you never saw before. Or you did see it, but it was harder. It wasn't as visual as what you see today's day and age when you combine mapping as well as side imagery together, as far as finding fish and refinding fish.
Can we fish anymore without technology? Can we just go in a canoe and cast a bobber? I mean,
well, I think so. I think Kevin Van Dam or even Al Linder would be pretty effective with a cane pole. Believe it or not, they're going to catch them in their own way. It's going to take a little bit longer, but they're going to figure out how to catch them. You know what I mean? I do know one thing. Mapping for me, because we go up and well, it's sort of weird, because you go up to these lakes, Canadian lakes, and which are not mapped. And
but you can build a map.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I built my own map based on my depth finder because I got this thing called Auto Chart Live. And by the end of the 3 days I'm on this lake, I actually have a sort of a pretty good perspective of a lot of the spots, at least that I was fishing. I can actually make a nice, pretty accurate contour map of it, which is sort of interesting. But it is sort of, you feel a little bit blind without it, when you take that technology away from you.
So that's where, you grew up, especially from tournament coverage from a business media standpoint, right? Your first baptism was into professional walleye trail. And
sure.
You guys launched that, and you're up to your eyeballs and covering that event, making the PWT TV and all of that. So, is there an aspect of the industry that's grasped onto the technology faster, in your opinion? Like, if you sit back here and watch the walleye guys now compared to the bass guys, or because the walleye used, and where I'm going with this a little bit, is old school walleye would poke a little fun at the bass community for not utilizing electronics as much as they could. But what I'm seeing that shorten, right? They're coming together.
Oh, no question about it. Actually, on the bass side of things, where deep water ledge fishing and finesse fishing used to be by a very small, refined number of different people. For years, we actually used to shoot the FLW Bass Open tournaments, and for a number of years, my television group used to go out and follow those guys around in a large perspective.
Some of those editors and producers weren't too bad.
Oh no, yeah, we got some of them here. Yeah. The fact of the matter is at that point in time, a lot of those guys were actually a lot of shallow water fishing, and a lot of those guys, it was sort of interesting that if you couldn't see it, you weren't fishing. Today's day and age, a lot more of those guys are more willing to, just because of the mapping program, deep water structured fishing, ledge fishing has become a lot more popular amongst anglers as a whole. Finesse fishing used to be, it was sort of early on. A lot of those guys did not even have that many spinning rods in their boat. Today's day and age, with Nico rigs, drop shotting, Ned rigging, all these finesse fishing has become far and away more popular. And part of that reason is because of braided lines, for your ability to do different things. You see a lot, it's become a lot more commonplace. It was sort of interesting. You're talking about that technology and application to bass or walleyes. A number of years ago, Humminbird or Minn Kota brought out the whole spot lock feature on the Ultrex trolling motor, and it was such a big deal in bass world. And it was sort of odd because we actually had that in Tarova trolling motors 5 years ago, and walleyes got been using it for years, and all the bass world is inundated. Oh, the spot lock, it does anything. That's an amazing technology, but we
knew that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we've had that for a long time. The interesting thing is you were talking about how that technology, the importance of it, even just that spot lock. I think you catch a lot more fish because of that spot lock technology on your trolling.
Well, you don't have to. You've given up something you had to worry about. You're now 100% of your thought process is not about boat control or staying on your spot.
Yeah,
it's all about working whatever presentation you're throwing out.
Exactly. Well, you pull up on a spot, and if the wind's blowing, I catch a fish. The first thing I do is I hit spot lock. So I land the fish, unhook them, put them in the live well, weigh them, release them, whatever I'm going to do, whatever format we're fishing them. You unhook the bait. I walk back up to the front of the boat. I'm sitting in the exact same position. I'm sitting there taking it apart like spokes on a wheel, and you're going doink, doink, doink. I can bump forward 5 feet, move 5 feet this way, jog around if I want to, and you can more analytically comb water. So ultimately, I'm not blowing over the fish. I don't have to reposition where, years ago, not that many years ago, I'd slip away. If it was really windy conditions, I would blow 25, 30 feet away from where I had just caught those fish, if not farther. And then I'd have to drive back up, reposition the boat based on where I was at, look at my depth finder, fine tune my cast, and then you're casting to that specific spot. I really do believe that actually spot lock, you actually are a lot more efficient. You catch a lot more fish just because of the trolling motor. just because of that, and I'm serious about that. I'm not even a question. Not only that, especially if you get in really ultra clear water. We're over in Sturgeon Bay. You're not blowing over those fish. Those fish are, the water's gin clear at 25-foot visibility. You're not blowing over the fish. You're not spooking them up, man. It's a pretty big deal. It really is.
So we've seen an absolute explosion in youth fishing all across North America. This high school fishing, the amount of young anglers wanting to compete. Not just their interest in fishing, but it's competitive fishing. Is part of the interest this technology and the fact that, we watch generations come through, and this generation here is very tech savvy. And the fishing industry right now is what's new in fishing. It isn't a Wismo gadget lure presentation, it's technology. And if you can master technology, you can fish with the best of them. Is that part of the attraction for high school and youth anglers? Is that part of this drive we're watching happen?
That's a really interesting topic. I think it goes back to actually what Kevin Van Dam was talking about with those younger guys, because all of those guys, those guys are extraordinary. They've been brought up with the technology, computer literate. It's like, the difference with the old school guys is with dad now. They're familiar with their electronics, but as far as their manipulation, these kids,
we can program the VCR.
Exactly. These kids eat, sleep, and breathe, pushing buttons, technology, apps, this, that. Most of these kids, they don't gather their information. They gather their information on a technique off of YouTube. They can go out in the field. I'm out on the water and look at a YouTube video. Well, this is how you drop shot or net, and actually watch it.
I've done that.
Not only that, this is the coolest thing. I'm online out on the field trying to figure this out. I all of a sudden start catching fish on some type of weird lure. I can go order the baits on my lure, have them delivered to my house tomorrow. You know what I mean? Which it's just like, that's just like in craziness. You know what I mean? We all of a sudden tap a warehouse, I'll have it delivered tomorrow. I'll have these new baits. But I think for the high school fishing, it's really interesting. I live in central Minnesota, Brainerd, Minnesota. The Brainerd High School Warriors high school fishing team is it's a pretty big group of kids. Actually, it's sort of interesting in the fact that it's one of the largest participatory sports in the Brainerd School District. Bigger than, it's bigger than the baseball, all those different things. I actually think I have like 140 kids or whatever that number is now. And it's fabulous to me. I know one thing, I wish when I was a kid, we had a high school fishing team, we would have had a really good team. but the one thing I would like to say about it, it's not all competitive angling. That's one thing. If I was to say not pick it apart, but the fact of the matter, there's different aspects. It's not only competitive. Bass fishing is not the only thing we should be teaching these kids. It's stewardship of the water, angler ethics, conservation. There's a wide variety and depth and breadth of different parts of the puzzle, because all of a sudden these high school kids are immediately think, well, I'm doing this, that all of a sudden I should be sponsored by Rapala or be able to get these different people to come in and actually, which those guys do in various degrees. All of them do. But the fact of the matter is for these anglers to, I don't want to even say it, there's a lot of complexities associated to fishing and application. And not only that, one thing that I look at, to make it straight competitive bass angling, that's not, to me personally, because I like fishing for all different species of fish, actually, and to make you, I think, better, some of the best anglers I know fish for, they're multi-species fishermen, because each different fish actually have its unique characteristics. You take a bluegill, a muskie, every different fish has unique personalities about them, where they live, how they habitat, how to go about finding them. The techniques you use actually make you a better angler for all different species of fish. Your depth and breadth of it as an angler, it becomes strengthened when you have a multi-species of knowledge based on angling.
So I know that you, and I know that your family and your business is spending a reasonable amount of time paying attention to what's going on in high school fishing. With that, and that was one of the questions I had, is are we spending with all this enthusiasm, it seems like there is just we're putting a lot of emphasis on the competition part. We're putting a lot of emphasis on the boulder part. We're putting a lot, and you're watching kids, and I don't blame them either, but I'd much rather get into the glitzy basketball that was 75,000 versus
the one WCC. That's all you needed, but
and there is. So I mean, do we? And it's all new, right? I mean, relatively new. So I mean, do we need to like, you know what? High school fishing should have a 75 horse limit. We shouldn't be forcing them. But then it's like, where are they going to come up with all these boats?
Yeah.
Where are you going to come up with all this gear?
Yeah.
This kid's going to have the advantage over this kid. Because of who his dad is, and his dad fishes a lot, or somebody in his family fishes more than the other.
I know. I'll give you some examples of this. Actually, my team fishing partner, Jason Alshire, is the coach of the Wyzetta high school team. And his interesting thing was his first thing that he does is he wants to make the unwritten rules of etiquette of fishing. To actually, let's write the rules, and all these kids should know that, because the reason being, you have to understand that a lot of these kids that are coming in, they have parents that are running these boats. The interesting thing is their parents never used to fish. They think this is like a competitive sport. It's like basketball. So all of a sudden they're cutting people off, and Jason says, I go to some of these events, and it's like, who are these guys? You understand what I mean? So it's not only that, it's great in the fact that the kids are actually bringing the parents into the sport.
Which giving them an opportunity to do something together, outdoors.
Exactly. But the thing is the parents were not familiar with the sport to a degree. So there is some work that has to be done. How do I say it? And I don't want to put it down, but it's the fact of the matter.
Hockey moms are fishing?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And they compete, and they want to win. And all of a sudden they see these two kids that are really good fishermen, following along, or, the good group. Well, they'll turn around and cut them off on a weed line, cut them off on a bunch of docks, and pull right up in front of them. And they don't realize that, they think of it more of like a competitive, a basketball game, a football game, where that's the way you play. And if you don't play hardball, the odds are you're not going to be successple in it.
You got to box out.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. The football coach here.
Right. Yeah, it's blocking.
Yeah. But it's sort of fascinating. But I think there's a lot of different things that we really have to take in consideration with our youth group. And I know I've actually spoken to the Quad Cities group, which has been one of the longest high school groups in the country. And that's more of a club, and they fish for all different species of fish, and it's not so tournament, though they do fish, some of the higher end kids in the tournament, but the whole curriculum, there is actually like a curriculum that involved, you know what I mean? And that's where, like Jason, he goes on and makes sure that these kids, he is not bringing the kids to the spots and say, cast here. He says, no, he's trying to train the kids with the aids of YouTube videos. Go look at this video. We're going to this lake. This is what we're looking for. You're going to make the decisions, and you're going to make yourself successful. It is not the parents or some other me garnering some other sports spots or coordinates from other people and saying that I'm successful. No, that is not. That's where the tactical error comes in with this thing, where we have to be a little bit more concerned, at least in the competitive high school bass fishing. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Do we need a little bit more structure related? I attended a meeting here this past winter that brought together all different groups. The Student Angler Tour, there was the BASS group, there's different entities inside the world of high school fishing.
Right.
And they're all kind of beating to their own drum. They're all having their own tournaments, and they all have their own slightly different rules. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West. And I feel bad for a parent that doesn't fish or that isn't paying attention to it, because they don't know where to go or what to do. And I don't know how you resolve that without, I hesitate to say bring the state in, involved.
To
in
regulate it.
Right. But it needs some sort of structure. We all need structure to succeed, right?
Right, exactly. And I think there is. And that's what Jason said. You know, the unwritten rules of angling ethics, there has to be actually like a curriculum. I mean, there really should be, you know what I mean? And based on the number of the youth that is being brought into the sport, it would be really beneficial in the long term, unquestionably.
But you're getting to interact with these kids a lot, and I know that you and your family, Al and Troy in particular, are really involved in this youth outdoor workshop that you guys are putting on every single year. What are you hearing from the kids that are there, and we've got a big industry here, right? And there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of kids, probably bigger and broader and better than it's ever been. So what are you hearing?
It's interesting. I actually have a seminar coming up this weekend, and it's actually part of my first presentation I'm going to do Friday is actually on that. It's sort of not a careers, but it's careers in angling. And a lot of people don't realize on how big the fishing industry is. It's $115 billion industry. It employs millions of people. I mean, the financial impact on the economics of this country is fascinating. And the cool thing is, everybody they think about, I want to become, garner a career in angling. So what do I want to do? I want to become a professional bass angler like Kevin Van Dam or Brandon Palaniuk or Mike Iaconelli or one of these new Chris Zaldane, become the next bass star or walleye star. Or I want to become a TV fishing host like Lindner. The fact of the matter is that there's a lot of other jobs associated with the industry. I know lots and lots of people, and I know a lot more people down to sales, research and development, tourism. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities. Research engineers. I mean, you just look at engineers, boats, electronics, trolling motors. I mean, all these different jobs that are available. Everything from running camps. I mean, it was interesting. When the years we ran Camp Fish,
which was if you don't know what it was basically a resort for young fishing enthusiasts that had instructors that taught them everything about fishing.
We ran Camp Fish for a number of years. The fact of the matter is the number of people that attended that camp that are now currently in the industry, it's amazing. And what all those people did from that went to that camp.
You bump into them all the time.
Yes.
The camp Fish connection.
Yep, they're everything. They run Alaskan fish camps, they're guides, they're tourism, they're actually representatives in the sport, they're sales, they're research and development on lures. I mean,
freelance writers.
Exactly. I mean, there's all these different jobs that those people actually, and just on the short number of years we had that open, and the number of kids that actually ultimately are right now are influential people in the fishing industry today. Right now, we actually have this giant group coming down the pipeline, and it's important that how we maintain and what we do with these kids to keep on expanding the depth of our fishing, or not the depth of it, to be able to maintain the futures and understanding what we have available. Fishing today is fabulous. Realistically, the tools that we have, the electronics, their fisheries, we have smarter management philosophy, stocking programs, slot limit. Fishing is really, really good. People are more effective in a shorter period of time than ever.
But our numbers are down.
Our
participation numbers in the sport are declining.
Yes.
Right? So you talk about all this opportunity, and that's where I'm going with the kids. Is this the wave? Is this next wave of enthusiasm? It's all technology based. Is this the way RBF is trying to get us back to 60 million? We talked a little bit about that, trying to get it back to 60 million anglers. We were there once.
Yes.
So is this the wave? Is this how we jump on it?
I think so. I really think so. I really do. I think it's a big thing. Fishing is cool again. I mean, which is really interesting to me. You know what I mean? I think we have a tremendous amount of opportunities, and we got to sort of manage what we're doing.
Don't listen to your kids. You've always been cool.
Well, my kid gets in my boat and he's always starts squeaking my electronics. No, this is the way I like it. Look at it. Says I don't like it. It started pushing buttons and changing my pages on my depth finder. Every time he takes my boat, Nick brings it back, and all of a sudden, putting my depth finder looks a lot different than it did before. It's not dissimilar than having aileron in the boat. Yeah.
That's awesome stuff. But I mean, that's what I'm in. I mean, I think we're at a really vital or important crossroads, I guess is where I'm going. I mean, if we really are going to grow this thing, we've got to jump on what's hot. And right now, there's two things that I think are really key. One is technology is cool, right? It's becoming easier for somebody that doesn't have the schooling to learn about the sport, access the sport, and find fish, all basically online.
Yes.
Right? You can do it all online. You're going to spend less time with no fish, and at the same time, just more opportunity for them because the business is there.
Yeah.
So if they want to jump in, they could.
Yeah, I'm all over that. I really do think it is. We can grow it considerably in the next number of years. Unquestionably, there's going to be. Well, actually, they've seen it already. Actually, there's actually our growth in angling is really coming from the youth. The most dynamic aspect of growth is in the youth, 16 to 25 years old of age.
That's big stuff.
Oh yeah.
So in terms of the online entertainment, you and Danny head up Lindner Media Productions. You guys are currently you make Angling Edge, you make Ontario's Outdoor Experience. Is that what?
We make 5 different television series. Angling Edge, Fishing Edge. We do the Ontario Experience.
Ontario Experience.
Yeah, then we do one for Lund Boats for Brunswick. And then we do another one online that's a straight online delivery, which is our first program that's like that, which is Angling Buzz Ice. And that's been really successful. The viewership on that is pretty interesting. Yeah.
And you're watching a lot more stuff just get consumed digitally than you have in the past. Are you watching that? Do you guys see your consumption trends that way?
Yeah.
So are TV numbers dropping?
TV, no. Well,
are viewer numbers dropping? And
I don't know that. Now that's sort of a misconception. This is sort of an interesting one because they say, well, the cord cutters and the TV, but that isn't the fact of the matter. It's actually how they gather. They're still watching vast amounts of TV, probably more than ever before. When I say TV or
a monitor,
yes,
a monitor,
but they're gathering it from different ways you can get it, whether it be digital. It isn't classic broadcast television. It's through a lot of different ways. And the biggest thing is when they get it. And they can view it when they want to. And that's where the digital aspect of it comes in because they're actually watching the show.
I love that.
Yeah, you can watch it whenever you want to. I don't have to watch it, tune in at 7:30 or whatever time that show's going to air. You can just get it whenever you want to. And so because actually more and more, it's going to be there's more consuming going on right now than ever before, unquestionably, viewing.
So you've got the 5 TV programs, plus you're doing, I know that you put out digital content, you've got your hands in angling and Target Walleye, an e-newsletter that's going out multiple times every single week with the latest and greatest. You got your hands on all sorts of digital distribution that way. You and Danny are heading up Lindner Media. I mean, there's a lot going on, and I'm trying to figure out how you balance it all. That's kind of
okay.
Right? I mean, because you can't possibly just go fish every day.
Oh no,
and call in for messages.
No, that's an interesting. People always say that almost inevitably. I'll be at some event or at some, putting a boat in or somewhere, or doing seminars. Inevitably, somebody come up. I wish I had your job. All you do is fish. I look at them point blank and say, all I wish I did was fish. The fact of the matter is because just doing what we do, it's a tremendous amount of not only field production, dealing with your different marketing partners, working with them in relation to research and development of their new products, the advertising and the commercial and even the distribution of airtime, but air buying time. We actually have a whole cast of different individuals, and it's hard to keep up with. It really is. There's a tremendous amount of material you got to cover to keep things, rolling. And we actually have individual groups of different people that actually, Richard Ekholm, he runs the Lund Ultimate Fishing Experience, and then I got Troy and Ty Shadeen. They really work on the Ontario program. Daniel Lindner, Al Lindner, Jeremy Smith. We work on the Angling Edge and the Fishing Edge television program. Those are like the main. They sort of dominate. But the interesting thing is, each one of those guys work to varying degrees in all of that different projects to a degree. But you actually have the real guys that actually sort of spearhead that one program and really monitor and babysit it.
So how many people, in-house, contract labor, I'm assuming there's some, how many people are involved in all of that they're reporting?
We fluctuate. We fluctuate. Actually, not 18. I think we got 18 or 19 people. At some point in time, it may be 25 throughout the summer months, depending on
the peak season.
Yeah, peak season. We're doing some amount of field production. You get some crossover where we get some field shooters, freelance field shooters that'll come in and fill in holes where we don't have enough body counts, because we got so many guys in different destinations simultaneously. Because in some of these shows because they're out. The majority of the stuff, at least the open water stuff, is shot in an 8-month period. It's actually focused on a 6-month period.
Sure.
So actually, you're trying to gather 65 different television. There's not enough days. And
how many segments is that?
A lot. a lot. It's a lot of material. It's a lot of space. It's a lot of when it boils down to it. When you come back into the field, you got 5 editors working nonstop, varying degrees, working on these different programs. Yeah.
So how do you put together a editorial calendar for that many different programs? That there's got to be an enormous amount of planning, right? That's where I'm going. This fantasy of just get up, go fishing, or wherever the bite is, you got to go make a show.
Oh no,
it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way.
No, we don't.
Where I want you to talk about is forcing the bite and forcing the thing to happen, because this is what the editorial calendar is.
Yeah, we don't do that at all, Chip, to tell you the truth. Actually, most of the time, we actually have a very, very distinct calendar period for almost every one of these different programs. And that's a lot of based on some of the new products that are coming out. It could be working with
Well, you look on the website, you've got a reservoir fishing show, you've got power cork and walleye shows, you've got, there's a definitely...
Yeah, following largemouth bass, river run smallmouth, summertime crappies. But it's not only that, because we like the editorial mix of various different species of fish, but it goes beyond that. It goes into the editorial content of some individual piece and different products that are in those shows. So what we go down and we make an editorial calendar based on hot fishing techniques or whatever that is, and we're going to make this mix of different things, and then we're going to blend in our sponsor, our marketing partners, products that are associated with that topic of editorial is blended in here, whether it be muskies, you know what I mean? And it could be talking about Daiwa HD reels for muskies and 65-pound suffix braid, or for certain lure applications for that given situation. And we do that for all 65 shows, on every one of them. And the best shows, we don't normally go out and catch as catch can. And it's interesting you're talking about that, because many times it'd be easy just to go catch fish. Just catch them on whatever you want to. Most of the time we're doing something like this where we're trying to gather and catch very, very specific situations. We're Tokyo rigging bass. So what we have to do is go find some type of flipping bass bite. We're power corking walleyes. You could have to go to find some location where you're catching the walleyes on slip floats in 20 foot of water on a very, very specific location. So it's not as, we're just not going out. And we do that if we were to stumble upon a really good bite, you're going to obviously take advantage of it. But more realistically, what we try to do is actually gather and make a really distinct editorial that has a good mix of different species and different techniques. You have pan fishing shows, you have bass shows, you have some muskie shows, you have walleye shows, you have actually this editorial blend that makes that a good series.
So how much feedback do you get from the companies that you work with on what, how it's all being, and how do you monitor where I'm going? I guess is it the partners that you work with? How do you hear back from consumers what's working, what's not working? I mean, in terms of what do they like to watch, what don't they like to watch, and maybe it comes down to the questions you're getting at seminars. But somewhere you've got to, your audience to connect to you. How do you listen to that?
We're trying to change. We've actually, angling edge, and that's a really interesting topic, because right now I'm in the process of changing some of that, because angling edge and fishing edge has a very, very specific editorial delivery, and it's still based on a lot what we did with In Fisherman years ago, FLP, understanding the nature of the fish, location, presentation, principle. And it's still applicable today. It's sort of like biblical with nature. It sort of works for it works for any different species. If you're fishing for bluefin tuna or fishing for bluegills, you can utilize this technique. And we've delivered that information. We still have Lindner as one of the key individuals there. The Lindner family is there. And then we got this newer stuff going on with the angling buzz type editorial, and it's delivered a lot more viral and more that youth delivery imagery and how it's done. It's a lot more quicker format, or not quicker. It's not so. It's not so rigid. It's a lot more levity to it if you have problems, and it's delivered in that fashion. Yeah, the Ontario experience in Lund actually has for those guys. They actually have given us a bootstrap editorial content on what boats we want to push. We're going to go fish those boats, and to make up that editorial lineup in that series. The same thing with like the Ontario shows. Those actually, they give us like our walking papers of the different lodges we're going to go at. We're going to go up and shoot all the imagery that's necessary to give a really good blend and representation of whatever destination that is. You're going to go to Eagle Lake. You're going to go to some fly-in lake. Are you going to go to a drive-to destination? And we try to get a good blend of editorial content, whether it be from a low end or more of a moderate drive-to destination to a high-end fly-in destination. That's what they want us to represent, and all the different things that are available for Canadian fishing experience, which there's tremendous of different opportunities, whether you wanted to go camping, an outpost camp, a fly-in, you know what I mean?
They're giving you the palette, but you still gotta create the masterpiece.
Yeah, you got to make the blend of editorial content that would actually hopefully is presented in a way that would actually for the viewership to generate a strong television viewership.
So you grew up doing this. I mean, this grew up. What is you were there for the first show. We talked about that right at the very beginning. So you were in the boat with Al, where you. Yeah. This was. I don't know if I've ever seen that show.
Oh, is that the sand?
Is that out here?
Oh, you could probably. Yeah, you could probably. No, you would. I don't even know how you'd find the Sand Lake wall. Yeah, you'd have to find it. Daniel's got it somewhere. It's like lost in its archives. So yeah, it's all shot on 16 millimeter film.
But you grew up in a surreal world of fishing, right? That the rest of us just couldn't even possibly comprehend growing up. Surrounded by incredible anglers. Your family had, and by this point, your dad and Al had befriend all the
high-end Roland Martin,
the campers, anybody that had any influence in the world of fishing, right, was hanging around the house. Yeah. So that was a pretty cool era to grow up around. You wouldn't have. Yeah, of course you wouldn't know what it was like not to do that.
No.
You grew up, and then but making TV. How old were you at the first segment?
Probably about 12 years old, 13 years old, 12 years old.
And was this? Or did you always want to be into fishing, or no? I don't know about you, but the rest of us went through a real rebellion period. Well, at least I did. That was pretty distinct, going the opposite direction of anything anybody in my family wanted.
I can give you some pretty interesting when I grew up, when we first started in the fishing industry, actually, Al and Ron actually owned another company even prior to starting Lindy Tackle Company. I actually got into the fishing aspect during Lindy years. Realistically, believe it or not, we had like a sweatshop in our basement. My brother, I Bill Lindner, we used to pour Lindy walking sinkers. Can you imagine this?
You're pouring lead in the basement.
Exactly. I still have burns on my legs from making these and actually tying up Lindy rigs. Actually,
The old spinner rigs.
that company was actually started in the basement of my father's house out on Gull Lake, and ever since then, and actually slowly developed. I actually throughout high school and actually between high school and college, I actually really garnered my love for the sport of fishing, guiding at a lodge in Canada, at the Tequila Lake Lodge. When I was going to college, my first 3 years of college, I actually worked at a fly-in fishing camp, and it was fabulously interesting.
Little did you know they were just happy to send you away for the summer.
Well, then when I came back, I actually started working more or less full time for Lindy's at that point in time, and I was actually running the still photography and doing that type of thing. And we were doing some amount of television. From there, we actually sold Lindy Tackle Company and started this new company, which ultimately became In Fisherman, and that turned out, a 20-year hiatus of working and developing that with all the books and magazines and the professional walleye trail tournaments, the Camp Fish, and that actually turned into a big growth period. And about 20 years ago, actually, Al and Ron still had a no-compete contract with In Fisherman. Daniel and I left, and we started Lindner Media Productions, of which at that point in time, I actually got a really big contract with Rapala to put together a series of different video and online video catalog for the entire Rapala product line, which is a real kickoff, job. And then I was actually working at that point in time. I was putting together pros pointers for the Galorbigan brothers.
Sure, which is now Wired to Fish.
Right? Exactly. And we were putting together, I forgot, like 90 short format, like 1 to 2 minute tips for those guys. So
it aired on in the sportscast, the regional networks, and it was that was a way to get to consumer that nobody had done. That was pretty innovative thing. So did you have any management portion of the In Fisherman, or was it all Ron and Al in the In Fisherman days?
I actually ran all the 90 videos, or I think we had 95 or 100 and something. We had one of the largest.
You were doing the TV and video production.
TV and video production, yeah.
Did you have a desire to fish at that time, or were you?
Oh no, I was fishing.
You were fishing.
Oh yeah, I was fishing. I was really into fishing tournaments, really in depth at that time. That's what I was saying. When I garnered the initial garnering the love of sport of angling. So when I spent those summers up in Canada, and it was sort of weird because when you work at a fly-in fishing camp in Canada, you're a jack of all trades. You do everything. You could be cooking. You could be, loading gas tanks. I'm trying to catch fish. I'm filleting fish. It's not only that, I'm trying to find the other guides that are lost out on the lake that were they were actually students from Winnipeg that were not really guides. I got to go find them on this 40,000 acre lake. But it was a really intriguing time. He actually really generated a lot of really good friends. But it was actually just the love of being on the water and the whole fish finding process, God's greatest creations, driving around on this Canadian lake. It's just fabulous. We had lake trout, big pike, muskies. I'm on this lake. I got a 40,000 acre lake. We have 13 portage lakes. I have command of anything and anywhere I want to go. I'd have all these people would come in, and we had some really big clients at that point in time. I had Ray Kroc Jr. for the whole McDonald's group. We actually had them as part of the people that would come in. It was really interesting when they'd come in, and we'd actually have them for a week. And actually, some of them.
That's some awesome guests.
Oh, yeah.
Not your average.
Oh, no.
Your average client.
I would ship to tell you stories. I had some of them, they were like ad executives, and they're dressed up in suits in their. I'm serious. They're dressed up. So why is this guy dressed up like this? It's like holy mackerel. It was really fun. Really fun.
He
Actually,
was trying to pay his mortgage.
I think I forgot what this one gentleman who was there, but he owned, I don't know, he owned like 13 or 14 McDonald's stores. And he actually befriended me. He says, "You're my guy." He said, I had a great brandy barrier for when this gentleman, he took him in. So I actually was more or less his, when he came into camp, "You're my man."
Did you get tipped in Big Mac?
Yeah, no, I got a really good tip when they left. No, I had a really good tip. Yeah, those for me at that point in time, and it was fabulous in the fact because when I guided up there, I didn't have to take any loans out for college. I'd walk out. I worked up there for 120 days on the water. I'd walk out at that point in time, which was a lot of money, 40 years ago. All of a sudden, I walk out with $15,000 or $20,000 in my pocket. I paid for the schooling. You know what I mean? So it fabulously worked out.
Was there ever a time that you thought that maybe you didn't want to follow the family? I mean, did you ever?
Oh, I wanted.
Right or left?
Oh, what are you talking? Yeah, well, I took a little bit of time off. I moved to Wyoming with a bunch of my friends. That was we worked out installing heating and cooling systems in Wyoming for a period. And then I wandered from there.
That week.
No, I lasted about a half a year there. From there, the odd thing was I made a really dynamic left corner, took two of the other guys. We decided we're going to move to Isle Morada, Florida.
Hey, I like it.
You did. Well, I worked on sort of little crab boats where we catch these lobsters for a period of time, and I think I worked at a Hojo's for a while. And then he decided, boy, these boys at In Fisherman need some help. Maybe I should go back and do that. And then I actually rounded up and started working at In Fish at that point in time. Yeah.
Because you went to college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I actually had sort of an interesting, when I went to college, people said, "What did you go to school for?" At that point in time, I went to graphics design and biology, which is sort of a weird mix, but realistically, if you own In Fisherman magazine, it made perfect sense.
You need anybody to draw a skeleton.
Exactly.
I like it.
Yeah.
So you did have to go look in here a little bit. Was there ever, when the whole sale came down, right? Because Ron and Al worked through this thing, and then from an outside standpoint, watching In Fisherman grow, I can only imagine what it was like for the two of them, and I've had this conversation with them. But when it comes time to sell, all the questions that are going through your head about what to do, where to go, and all that. But from your standpoint, you're sitting there, you know that they're contemplating selling this machine that could be yours. Was there ever like, what the heck am I going to do when this goes away?
Well, that's why I left 2 years earlier. That's why I saw it coming. Oh, I knew that coming. And anytime a big corporation buys out, I was familiar enough that I've been in the industry for already. Right. I've been working within Fisherman for close to 18 years at that point in time. So I was very, very familiar. Once a large corporation comes into fruition, that a lot of the main people, they actually bring in their own corporate structure, and it usually changes pretty dynamically, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. It does. And that's where I decided to go out and start our own television production company at that point in time.
There was never really a question of what was going to...
No, believe it or not, we actually had it. There was...
No.
We had pretty firm understanding, even at that point in time, Al and my dad, already at that point in time when we left early, what we were going to do at that point in time. Yeah, that we were going to leave and start another production company and just start just another company. I think this is what we do. Are we going to go do it straight television? We're into the fishing industry. We're going to stay in that industry. That's where our love is, and just grow from there.
Well, you've done an amazing job. You built an incredible company that has inspired millions of people to not only just fish, but it's all helped all of us become better fishermen. And we talk about looking stuff up on YouTube on how to get it done. I've watched you and all of your cohorts online, right, giving me tips and tricks and help me get through a question that I had.
Yeah.
But that's part of the industry. We rely on each other.
Yeah, it's a library of work. A lot of people don't even realize. A lot of the youth today, even their vocabulary, associated with angling, they don't even realize that that's actually was formulated. Yeah, they actually do. But in today's day and age, they don't realize that. Even my son doesn't realize that, which perturbs me. Nick, and then it's his son.
Your dad was making up all the words.
Yeah. Well, you got to have this sort of angling terminology. Well, it's never been made before. We'll just make our own terminology. Yes, yeah. But some of it did come from scientific world. Obviously, we had a lot of really extraordinarily work with extraordinarily talented individuals. Just to say, it was Al and Ron, and they would give. The value of all these other people that we worked with over the years, everything from Doug Stange, Dave Sanda, Dan Sura, the cast of characters. There's a lot of different people, Larry Dahlberg, you know what I mean, throughout the period of time.
Not really talented people.
Oh, yeah, unquestionably. You want to be successful, how do you do that? Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are. That's a good way to do it. That are better at doing whatever job
you want to
do. Exactly.
Big lesson there.
Yeah. So absolutely.
What's next?
Good question. We're trying to get through the year. There is
trying to get through the 17 below day.
Yeah.
What are you to do?
No, the biggest thing is for us is to negotiate. There's a big change in the world of delivery, as we've been talking about this whole digital delivery versus linear television. That's going to be a big thing to negotiate. It really is. I mean, as far as our marketing partners, it's not going to change that much as far as our strategy on how to deal with the people who are, like I'd say, the marketing partner sponsors, and it's sort of an odd thing to do because we work really well with those people. The biggest thing, we actually have a unique, sort of a different strategy not a different strategy. We're really directly online with their sales strategy and how to go about that, then integrate it in a way into the editorial content to the consumer that it's beneficial for them. And that's what's really critical, that it's not hypey, and you're trying to position a product in the right position at the right time so the consumer or the viewer would consider that giving them information, and you're not selling them something. No, you're trying to sell them a knowledge and how to utilization of a product or whatever that is, and how to be more successful. That's what you do. That's what has been a long strength of us, and how to position products within the editorial content of our programming, all the different things we do, whether it be book writing, all this.
Is that what you have the most fun doing? Is trying to figure that out, or is it still fishing?
Oh, I love all of the above. I for years and years, actually, we used to do high-end commercials, and I really enjoyed that. But today's day and age, a lot of the marketeers, they've actually brought that back, where they used to do commercials that were, $100,000, $200,000 commercials. Not very many of them do it anymore. They do it in-house, and they do it bootstrappy, or they don't do it. They don't spend the same amount of dollars associated to marketing as what they used to. But I used to really, really enjoy that. There's some new programming. The biggest thing is actually developing these new, more digital distribution, and to really focus on that, and what we can go beyond where we're at right now. And that's only going to increase. I mean, there's not even a question about that right now, that we're like 70% of our viewership is linear television. Then we have like 30% of it is a digital delivery. And we're doing like this sort of a shift, sort of, there's going to be a definitely shift of this delivery. But we actually deliver millions and millions of viewership online. But you can gather it whenever you want to, whatever species you want to, whatever topic you can find it. We have a vast archive of material of online delivery right now.
AnglingEdge.com is still the best place to find it.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah.
We watched a generational change from in-fisherman to you launching Lindner Media Productions with Danny, and now we're looking here.
Well, this is the
next gen. Is this what's coming?
Yeah,
is this what's next?
This is sort of a unique show. Actually, it airs this year. I actually shot it with myself, my father, my son Nicholas, and his son, Carter. We actually have 4 generations in the boat here. And this little guy right here, you cannot even believe how he can fish and how he can handle equipment. It's sort of interesting because he's a short little guy, and you can see him chunk.
Is he messing with your electronics too?
He's
Well, he does. Actually, yeah. I can sort of neutralize it if I bring enough snacks in the boat. A bunch of you got to hide Mike and Ike's in different locations in the boat.
His last name is Lindner. I don't think any of us would be surprised. At
Yeah.
how well he can cast.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
No doubt
it's
about that.
interesting. We were out on a relaxed lake, and we're teaching him on how to fish sort of Ned fishing. And he's got this whole technique and cast it out, let it sink, count it down to the bottom, and he reels it in really slow. Boom, 4-pound walleye, big smallmouth. It's just hilarious. But he really enjoys fishing. He really does. Yeah.
No, so how do you do that? How do you not over stimulate him on the sport? I mean, it's kind of hard, isn't it?
No, you just let them take control whenever they want to.
Yeah.
That's what I did with Nick. It was interesting because he used to be really big into sports and into the whole baseball, basketball, football, rodeo, and he got it. The weird thing was he was actually a really good baseball player, and I actually was a coach actually up in the Legion ball. He goes to a D1 school, went to North Dakota, goes in, did tryouts. He had 5 in the outfield, 5 in the infield, 5 at bats, done. Next call, he calls me up, Dad, I'm starting the new college fishing team. What, can you help me? He says, I'm in. It was fun. And since then, he actually started fishing a lot more. He really does. Actually, I fish with a lot of his buddies still to this day, actually, that are actually good friends of mine, Hunter and Gunner, and kids that he grew up with. They're not really not my kids anymore. They're my friends.
Yeah. That's pretty.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat when that transition takes place.
Yeah, it is. He comes over and helps when I need help. He's there in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So we've got generations of Linders to look forward to.
I think so. Yeah, they're coming down the pipeline. Yeah, they are fast and furious, actually. Yeah.
It's good to hear. Well, it's been great having you here today, and hopefully you can come back and join us again. I didn't get through about half of what I thought I was gonna. So we had a lot of stuff left on the table, James. Best place to find out all that's going on in the Linder world, I'm guessing, is anglingedge.com.
Absolutely. Facebook, YouTube. There's a lot of different opportunities to find us on all different types of information.
We'll have all those links at the end there, and of course, thanks again for joining us, man.
No, it's a pleasure. Absolutely. We shall see you on the water, probably fishing a tournament against you at some point in time here.
Chip Leer. Wildside. Don't miss a single Wildside podcast. Subscribe to the Chip Leer's Wildside Podcast YouTube channel today or visit fishingthewildside.net.